What's up everybody, this is Entendre, and today I'm going to go into some more sound design techniques in this episode of Sound Design Sessions. We're going to be talking about wavetables and wavetable synthesis and what that means exactly, with some examples using a few different synths. So we're going to start off with Ableton's wavetable, and this is new to Ableton 10. It's quite a nice instrument. And now you can even load your own wavetables into it, which at first it didn't have that. So what is a wavetable? Basically, a wavetable is it's like a periodic table of waveforms. So if you'll notice right here, we have a sine wave at the bottom, and then you can see these more faint waves in the background kind of moving up. And this is the default preset under basic shapes. And if I were to move this, you can see it's moving through. So it's basically a sequence or a series of waveforms, often morphing between, but sometimes it can be more abrupt. And it's kind of like a movie of different waveforms, basically. And a lot of synths have this these days. It's quite a popular type of synthesis. So it also pairs very nicely with the subtractive and additive techniques we've talked about before, as well as FM. Let's just dive right into it and hear some sounds. So let's play a note here, and I'll just move this slider up and you can hear what it sounds like. So Signalizer and Voxengo Span are two free plugins, and that's what I'm helping to visualize this with. I'll link those in the description. But basically, that's your idea of a wavetable. So then you have all these different categories of wavetables that come with wavetable. And inside of those, you have a bunch of different actual wavetables. So let's check some of them out. Anything from really simple to complex. You can use these arrows to skip between them. And then a lot of times with wavetable you have some different warp algorithms. So in this synth we have FM, and you also have classic, which does more of like a pulse width modulation. And this would be the sync. And that'll be quite different if you change the pitch here. So you can get a ton of different sounds just with that, just with the wavetables and changing different warping algorithms. You can of course combine that with some of the subtractive stuff using filters. You can play with the modulation stuff, which we haven't gotten too much into yet, but you can explore that. ADSR, basically attack, decay, sustain, release, and just kind of changing the way the sound fades in or fades out or sustains. And then you can, of course, map this stuff using the matrix. So I could map the envelope 2 to the oscillator 1 position, and so now we could have it automating. Let's try a different pattern. And if we found a sample, we can just click and drag into here. Shorter samples are often good. So originally that sounded like a Halford sample. It sounds like breaking glass and some kind of clunk snare. So yeah, you can really get creative with this and make sounds that no one's ever heard before. And so yeah, let's go and check out the next synth we have loaded up, which would be everyone's favorite, Serum. And this is also really nice for Wavetable because you have this editor, and I know I was showing additive in here in a previous video, but you can also use this for Wavetable. So I could add another frame and then say draw some pattern in the additive section, and right now it's just a 2-frame pattern, but that's a Wavetable, and I could add as many frames as I want, but you can also use some of the options in here to get some creative stuff. So I could hold shift and select both of these and do a morph spectral, and now it'll fade between those, so I can click and drag here. Just kind of morphs between them. And you can also say add another, let's remove that and just try another thing here. So I'll distort this frame using this tool here, and that's going to sound like. Now you can use one of the other morph algorithms like crossfade, and now it sounds like this. It's automatically filled out the 256 frames, same as spectral, but it has a slightly different sound. So that's how you can build some wavetables in Serum easily. You can also drag wave files in, just like in Wavetable Synth. So we could take the same snare drum from Halford and drop it in here. And if I click here, you can see a 3D representation of the waveform. Or the movie, rather. And you can go in here and do something like fade edges, grid size, and that'll smooth out some of those clicks and pops. And we can also do that morph crossfade or spectral. And that's not too bad. Then you can also remove some of the dead space at the end. So there's a lot of empty frames. I can hold shift and select all of these up till about maybe here and say add, remove multi-selection. And now we can morph spectral again. And let's check that out. So that's pretty cool. You have a lot of great editing tools in here, and so I encourage you to explore it. You can spend hours, but when you're dragging in a wave, you can choose these different algorithms, and you're going to get vastly different results with each one. So let's try FFT, for example, this 2048. Very different than if I did FFT 256, for example. And if you want to remove that choppiness, again, you can use some of these processing tools like this morph. Or reduce the frames and then morph. There's a lot of ways to get around it, but let's try that actually. Let's cut off these end frames, remove multi-selection, and then let's go ahead and process spectral. Yeah, that's better. So let's contrast that to the one we made just previously. Let's see here, user, the yeah, so there's lots of ways to do it. Just got to explore. Next up, let's just explore our third wavetable here in the list. So we're going to take a look at Zebra or Zebra2. So in this one, this is the initial preset that you can get to if you go up here, go to init. And let's go to oscillator 1, and you can see there's a wavetable right here. I can scrub through it using this, and it's also linked to this knob up here. You can see it's not moving there because there's no variations in it yet. But if I were to say insert a point and draw a pattern like so, then I can skim between those. And you can also go to the last frame, do something like this, and then if I hold Command and click on the first frame, then it creates a morph between those. So this one just does 16 frames, but you can still do a ton with that. You have these different modes here, so there's geomorph, spectromorph, and then you have this geoblend. Now geoblend's cool because it's almost like an additive or spectral synthesis here. And I can draw a different pattern over here and hold Command and click, and let's do the same here, or draw a little pattern in here as well. Okay. Then you also have this spectra blend. So definitely very cool. You can also normalize the waveforms. Change the resolution. You can change the soft or crisp setting here. Tons of variations possible. So another favorite synth for sure. Next up, we're going to explore Massive X, which is brand new from Native Instruments. Well, not brand new, but it's fairly new. And it's based on the original Massive, which was a huge hit, one of the most popular wavetable synths, but we're not going to look at that in this video. But Massive X is still quite a fun synth. I love it. So right here is where you can control the wavetable in Massive X. Using this position knob up here as well. It's by default mapped to macro 1. If you're in that initial preset found in Quick Start. And you also have a lot of great wavetables in here. So it's definitely one worth checking out if you're into the sound of wavetables. Unfortunately, you can't load your own yet, but that doesn't really matter too much to me as long as the ones that are built in sound good, which they do. So maybe one day they'll add that, but I love what it comes built in with. So definitely a powerful synth. And we covered some phase modulation in the previous FM video, and if you combine that with the wavetable stuff, you can get a wide range of stuff as far as different frequencies and sound effects out of that. So let's go ahead and move on to our next example, which would be Europa from Reason. And here's the initial preset for that. Again, you can skim through the wavetable using the shape knob. And this one's cool. You have the modifiers here as well. And a spectral filter, which is very unusual. So, very powerful wavetable synth. You have 3 different engines and just a ton of wavetables. You can also use user wavetables on this one. So I could take this same snare drum. Actually, I don't know if you can drag it in there, but I could type Alfred snare, and there it is. And now we can and there's also this smoothed out version. You can modulate it using envelope 1. So you can get some really cool effects out of that as well. And so let's go to our 6th and final synth to demo, and that's Expanse Hyperwave Synthesizer, which is a Reason Rack extension that I'm using with Reason Rack plugin, and it's also a wavetable synth, and you can import waves, or it has some cool built-in ones. So let's check out some of the built-in ones. And you have 4 different engines for this synth, or oscillators, and you have some additive stuff you can do here, and EQ and sequencer, CC sequencer, and you also have some different unison modes. It's a very cool synth, but we're just focused on the wavetable part at the moment. So let's drag that same sample in here now, and you can see, bam, it's turned it into a wavetable. Let's put it on the right oscillator that we're hearing. There it is. So that's pretty cool. You can also do different modes here. Or crossfade modes. So that smooths it out quite a bit. So yeah, that pretty well concludes what I wanted to cover in this video, but I hope you learned something about wavetable synthesis and how it works. It's just a series of waveforms and moving through it using some kind of knob or slider, typically labeled position. But let's continue this conversation in the comments, and let me know if you have any questions. Check out my music on Spotify and SoundCloud, and until next time, I'm Antandra. Have a wonderful day.